Fears on the rise for crypto holders as we witness volume declining within the crypto markets, and we see the wind coming out of the sails. We have Bitcoin, however, still holding above the key $100,000 mark, and it all is around what's happening today. The FOMC is coming out later. The federal funds rate decision will be made, and we'll see what the tonality is of Jerome Powell, the federal chair, under the guise of course, Donald Trump for the first time of this cycle. So we'll see what happens over there. But the whole market is, of course, trying to de-risk into this environment. So we are seeing a little bit of a pullback within the crypto markets over here. The majority of the altcoins are down. This is off of yesterday where we had a little bit of a bounce, and that's mostly due to what we're seeing on the NVIDIA chart, because remember, there's this massive risk and overhang with NVIDIA holding up one of the highest weightings when it comes to the stock market and the tech stocks. And we saw that massive drop, right? But at the end of the day, it's level to level and it's still range bound, even despite putting in almost a 25% drop over there. You can see how it respected this mid-range level, NVIDIA bouncing from around that $114, $115 zone and starting to lead into an upward price move. So the question is, will the trend remain intact? Because at the end of the day, you do still have the potential for higher highs and higher lows, right? And you can see that over there. And if this does turn out to be a strong bounce zone over here, we would expect that it should line up really, really well with whatever's going to be said at the FOMC later on today. So smash the like button, hit the bell notification, and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to race through the show today. We have a lot to cover over here. Stock market still looking relatively decent as well, bouncing alongside NVIDIA over there and respecting some of those key levels. We do want to see continuation of this trend since it is currently filling in what is a futures trading gap. And typically we oftentimes see price move into that gap and then reject. So bulls will be looking to defend that. But as mentioned, the wind is out these sails, and this is probably the biggest red flag or warning signal for when it comes to the crypto markets. The fact that the daily exchange volume is moving towards the downside shows a lack of confidence from retail market participants in terms of depositing new money onto exchanges and getting exposure to crypto. There is a lot of fear in the market right now, despite what your fear and greed index may be suggesting, which suggests that we are in extreme greed. I've mentioned multiple times, one of the better metrics to look at is try and combine what's happening over here with the daily exchange volume alongside what's happening with the funding rates. If the funding rates start to go negative, which is what we saw on the most recent dip, and the volume is coming down, that's probably a better indication of extreme fear coming into the market, or at least fear, right? Fear to uncertainty, and of course, strong negative funding. Big spikes towards the downside. We'll bring that chart up another time, maybe tomorrow. That is probably your signs of extreme fear, right? So just quickly looking as the wind comes out the sails over here, this was expected. We spoke about this yesterday. We said that it is the most likely outcome given the fact that the market will be uncertain going into today's FOMC meeting. And I think the real red flag and warning would be that after today, in the next 24 hours, if this is still declining and we don't get some sort of a notable spike in the volume chart, then ultimately that's a big warning sign, and we may be going down to some of those lower levels. On Bitcoin specifically, the line in the sand is really that $89,000 level is going to be very, very, very significant support. The only problem with that is you kind of don't want to see price move down there, taking out the entire candle from last week's high, because on a weekly scale, you can see how this will very quickly then start to look like it's printing on a closing basis. You can see over there where those highs are, and now you're going to have on a closing basis lower highs on a close and open over there, and that could start to look like this, right? Potentially the start of a downtrend over there on the weekly scale, which is what we don't want to see, right? You could also look to the total cryptocurrency market cap, which is essentially still consolidating in between this trading range over here between 3 trillion and up to about that 3.7 trillion. Now, as long as we can defend this range, and you can see the total cryptocurrency market cap hold this level, while simultaneously volume holds up and defends the $75 billion mark, then the hopium does remain alive, right? Total 2 won't look too different. At the end of the day, these cup and handle formations have been incredibly reliable when it comes to trading. Remember, cup and handle formation is a bullish chart formation where you see this rounded bottom, a reaccumulation phase with a high low over here, and we have essentially started to break out, and you're just consolidating. You don't always get this perfect consolidation that forms around that level, but the measured move would take this much, much, much higher. Remember, we can actually work out the measured move over here by looking from the bottom of the cup to the neckline over there, and then we can start to work out the breakout level, which would take you to about 2.27 trillion. And this is on total 2, right? Just quickly racing through total 3, it's the same picture over here, cup and handle formation, forming a consolidation under the previous highs over there, and we're still waiting for total 3 to break out. Others, which is your true DGen altcoin market cap, this is minusing the top 10 coins from the top, from the entire coin market cap or CoinGecko site. And you're looking at anything number 11 on the list down to the bottom, doing exactly the same thing as total 2, back testing into the neckline over there. And it really is a do or die situation. You do want to see these things getting moving sooner rather than later. Otherwise, there could be some real trouble, right? Total 3 over here, actually looking better when measured against Bitcoin compared to others measured against Bitcoin. Remember, this chart, total 3, represents the ratio of how the broader altcoin sector is doing measured against Bitcoin. Of course, over time, this has just been bleeding out straight down, right? But we did have a glimmer of hope and some signs of life when we had the spike up over here into the end of November, beginning of December of last year, 2024, where we broke structure, taking out those highs. And now you just want to see some form of a higher low form over here. And that would be the very earliest sign that maybe, just maybe, some things are starting to change. As mentioned, others, because it's a little bit more degen than total 3, because it subtracts the large caps like the top 10 coins. This one doesn't look as good as total 3 measured against Bitcoin. It did get the break of structure, but you can see over here really starting to threaten those lows. So could there be one more capitulation candle that runs down into this long-term trend line over here, which is where all the major bottoms were found, right? You can see over here, this is what essentially led into those altcoin seasons, is first you had a test down into that lower boundary. Well, only time will tell, right? I think that we'll have our answer very, very, very soon. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll know exactly what's happening. If this is going to be a high low and it's front run this area, or are we going to go deeper into the zone? Total 3 still holding up against Bitcoin, right? That's probably the better one to be looking at right now, especially so if you have been trading the stronger coins, things like Solana, right, which have been mostly in an uptrend, both against USD and Bitcoin for the entire of the cycle, right? And that would fit into this total 3 category. All right, looking at Bitcoin very quickly, we still have the potential for that higher low to form over here. This is a do or die situation. Pretty much your line in the sand or your invalidation on the daily time frame can just be the wick low that occurred on Monday, the 27th of January. If you break below that low, expect that you're probably coming down to $92,600 to fill some of this inefficiency of the wick from the low that occurred on the 13th of January on Monday, right? That means that the chart is still range bound. But if we do print in the higher low over here and you see some sort of good news coming out of the Fed and the market accepts that good news and starts to buy in, well, ultimately, your confirmation of the high low will occur if Bitcoin can close above $105,000. Closing above $105,000 would mean probable higher low, and most likely you're going to make another high and you're going to take out this range high. But the bulls have their work cut out for them because based on experience and what we've seen historically, although it sounds very, very unconventional, it's very difficult to fight the bear moon, which is now just printed, right? We have the bull moon, we have the bear moon. Every single time we print one of these bull moons where it's underneath price action, we get a massive move towards the upside. And in an uptrend, when your bear moon prints, in the best case scenario, you would expect continued ranging within the market, which slightly skews the odds of this actually going to hold as a high low. The formation of the candlestick looks really, really good into the high volume area, which is the exact zone where we said price should bounce from. And remember, the pendulum swings. The bear moons and the bull moons help you to understand when that pendulum is going to swing from the bull's favor to the bear's favor. Bears will now have their chance to break price action down. And if bulls can defend, your best case scenario is probably holding up a trading range over here where you're looking to defend the mid range. So expect that it's probably going to be continued chop, which is a little bit unfortunate, right? But it is what it is, right? And we still see ETH BTC getting absolutely clobbered towards the downside over here. No signs of life as of yet, continued pain. And the question is, when will Ethereum eventually hit $5,000? That is the founder, Vitalik Buterin, of course, looking like he's about 140 years old. That's when, at this rate, this is what it looks like. That is when you're going to see Ethereum hit $5,000. But jokes aside, this is usually the time period. February and March is the time to shine in a post-halving year for Ethereum, that is usually where you start to see some momentum pick up. We do have the presence of the left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder with our inverse head and shoulder formation, and that would take it up to about $5,700. So you'd break through that, of course, psychological $5,000 level that keeps seeming to be on the table over there from a lot of analysts. So continue to monitor the chop over here. At the end of the day, in the short term, this is a downtrend, lower lows and lower highs on the Ethereum chart, if you're looking, for example, on the 4-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour time frame. But at the end of the day, it's also holding the mid-range with the possibility of presenting you with a right shoulder, which is a good sign, right? So we'll see if momentum starts to pick up. It's all going to come down to what happens over here at the Fed meeting. Now, it is possible that this is a nothing burger, like we've seen so many times before, at which point I would anticipate that we're probably going for a bit of a deeper dump, because the market is really clutching onto some form of hope, which is also not necessarily a good sign. When you have a lot of buyers like BlackRock, you have Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy, and you even have Trump entering into the crypto race, and prices are still not wanting to move and, holding on to some form of hope. Sometimes that would mean that you have to actually go in for a deeper correction. So what am I saying over here? Well, to make it very, very simple for you, it is cautiously bullish, right? Cautiously holding on to thin ice bullish, like you're walking on thin ice. There are little cracks in the ice already. And ultimately, if one more rock falls, you're going to break through that ice and you're going in for a deeper correction. The levels, first $89,000. If you lose that, yes, then you can talk about some of those lower levels like $77,000, which is where there is a CME futures gap. But there is some glimmers of hope, right? Dog with Hat appears to have confirmed their appearance on the Vegas sphere, right? So 𝗕𝗤𝗕𝗕𝗬𝗕. Remember, this is one of the meme coins. Dogecoin, of course, being the biggest dog in the market, and then you put a hat on it, and then you got a dog with hat, right? The one with the beanie. We spoke about this. We said coming into a key level over here, you can see falling wedge, hit the key zone, range lows, very significant level. It's actually put in about an 18% bounce since yesterday when I mentioned this, 41% from the lows over here. So if you did get into that trade, even right now, you'd be 27% up. But I mean, that would be a highly risky trade. It's not yet a trade. The trade is still very, 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 very early. What you could be waiting for, if this is actually going to turn out positive, it's probably something like that, right? You would have your low, you'd print in some sort of a high low, and then really the action begins to happen if you can reclaim the yearly open, which is at about $2, right? And this is all going to depend, again, on what happens at the FOMC, because if the statement comes out positive and we see any form of the Fed suggesting that they're buying back assets and they're no longer selling assets, which is what they've been doing for the whole time, which is quantitative tightening and reducing their balance sheet. But if they add to their balance sheet and they buy back assets, that is a form of quantitative easing. And that is a sign of the peak euphoria that usually comes into the bull market that leads to that price momentum towards the upside and the end stage, right? So keep an eye on that. We have been trading pretty aggressively over here in Whale Room. Farouk took great trades here on Solana. This is one of the members' trades over here. It's getting a massive 100x trade over here, 133% profit, huge position. If you do want to join, there's a link in the description below. The signups to that is currently open. If you just go through below over here, you'll see Whale Room. That is the private Discord. We are going to be closing this group off, just to be clear. Once the market starts to break out once again, we are going to be closing it off to keep the group as a tight-knit community. Goku's still looking very strong, closing multiple candles outside of the top of the range high, meaning the level to reclaim is starting to look like it's being claimed. You're gaining acceptance above here. $26.4 million market cap, absolutely powerful. This should be like a knife through butter to get through to the 1.618, especially so if you start to see the breakouts in the likes of WIF. Remember, we can also go to Brett, which looks very similar to WIF over here in the sense that it came down into the bottom of the range low with a falling wedge as well, exactly the same price level. Let's quickly go on this chart. I think I need to be on this one over here. I drew it on this side just so we don't need to redraw that. Guys, if you appreciate the video, please do smash the like button. There it is. So you have your falling wedge formation over here. I mean, we can tighten this up ever so slightly, but give or take, falling wedge formation into key support over here on Brett. And I think if ETH breaks out and we do actually get that inverse head and shoulders and things go well with the Fed, you should see some decent moves over there. So use the link in the description below. Remember, we also do start with Whale School in just 7 hours time. If you use any of the links below and you sign up, you should gain access. You need to get verified to get in order to get access to all of the course content. So everything is linked in the description below. That is it from me, folks. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have an absolutely lovely day, and we'll check in with you tomorrow following what happened with the Fed. Cheers for now.